keys to sickbay. The doctor should look at it as soon as possible.
It is the way in which we propagate our species. Please demonstrate how this is accomplished. So, what's next? I don't know.
Good evening, boys and girls. Are you sitting comfortably? Then I'll begin. This work is dedicated to those friends and colleagues from Star Trek and T.J. Hooker, whose talents have contributed in no small measure to whatever success I have achieved. Acknowledgements. Writing a book is both an agony and an ecstasy. Wrestling with an empty page and a barren brain is agony. Putting a period on the last sentence of a well-constructed paragraph is the ecstasy. Between the two lies the abyss of the novel. In order to cross that crevasse, I needed help. Ron Goulart, a wonderful writer, showed me the way out and showed me the way in to completing the novel. He did an enormous amount of work, stick a pin in that, and I shall be grateful to him for a long time to come. In addition, I'd like to express my gratitude to Susan Allison, Roger Cooper, Chris Schillig, and Lisa Wagner at J.P. Putnam's for their help. Acknowledgements should also be extended to my agents, Ivy Fisher-Stone and Fifi Oscard in New York, and to my good friend and agent from that organization, Carmen Levere, for his dedication and know-how in making this idea become a reality. William, Mr. Tambourine Man himself, Shatner, who will always forever be one of the common people.
Amazing. Well, with that, welcome to Casual Tek. Yes, this is, after a few weeks away, we're back to what Miles has assured me is definitely the premise of this podcast, where we examine the fictional works of one William Shatner, specifically, in this case, TekWar. That is right, Miles. This is what we've been doing for the last year and a bit, right?
I think so. Anything else is just a tech-inspired hallucination from the drug tech we've been taking a lot of during the month of NaNoWriMo.
Yes. And on that note, how's your NaNoWriMo been, Mars?
It has actually not been a great one. I gave up halfway through because, so it turns out that having to edit 2 podcasts in 1 month is actually a really tiring expense.
It takes a bit of time.
Charlie, did you know about this?
Weirdly enough, Miles, I might be familiar for the last year and a half.
Man, I never knew. And then, like, I've had the Thanksgiving run up,
of course.
So that's been busy at work, and then also, for the last few months, I've generally been doing my writing first thing in the morning, and also been alternating between doing words or going to the gym. Turns out that has actually kind of then screwed up my schedule. Didn't help that my Nano is on Brighton time, so it is 6 hours ahead of me.
Oh, yeah.
And so when it hits 6 p.m., it becomes the next day, thus throwing off my word count. So I fell behind, and I'm taking this as a loss, but, you know, the experiences I will learn from it would be a win. Hi, everyone. I'm Miles Reed Lobato, science fiction writer and Raymond Chandler fan. And Charlie Etheridge Nunn, who are you?
Well, I am tolerable NaNoWriMo doer Charlie Etheridge Nunn. I have technically finished a novella and written a lot of blog posting about RPGs as my month. Yeah. So there's that. And I'm a Blade Runner fan.
Ooh.
Yeah. I came fairly late to actually being a fan of Blade Runner. It used to be a thing my dad would put on. It was nice. And then I did a film noir module of media studies at sixth form. and we were shown Maltese Falcon, Chinatown, LA Confidential at the Duke of York's, which was my first time there.
I've never seen LA Confidential. I've seen Maltese Falcon and Chinatown, both spectacular films.
LA Confidential, I'd definitely recommend. It's good fun. And then, to round it out, Blade Runner. There's a nice little bonus at the end going, look, this is still a film noir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, Cyberpunk has never been... Like, I came to Cyberpunk late because, I wasn't cool enough in the 80s and 90s to read actual science fiction beyond, like, Star Wars tie-in novels and Dune.
Yeah, the leather jackets and the mirror shades weren't.
Yeah, so I was like, the first real cyberpunk I would say I came in contact with would be like Blade Runner, the 90s film of Ghost in the Shell.
Oh, yes.
And The Matrix. I was not that kind of nerd who went to see Johnny Mnemonic in cinemas.
No, I don't know if I know anyone who saw Johnny Mnemonic. I don't know, the Keanu Renaissance hadn't quite happened at that point. But yeah, I mainly got into Cyberpunk through Cyberpunk 2020, the role-playing game.
Not the hit PlayStation 4 game, which has been bug-free since launch.
No. I was getting into role-playing games, and I knew nothing about them. I'd never met a role player outside for people I conscripted into playing Vampire the Masquerade, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and Alternity, in that order. And then this kid
Charlie, be honest.
Yeah.
Was young Charlie, who was conscripting people to play Vampire the Masquerade, was he a basic bitch?
Probably. Certainly too basic to be with the cool goth kids that actually would have appreciated Vampire the Masquerade. But yeah, and then this kid Fergal heard me talking about role-playing games, probably some tired, bored friend of mine, and lent me his copy of Cyberpunk 2020, which was thoroughly used, but it was good fun. And then he moved away about a month later, and I still have his copy of Cyberpunk 2020.
See, clearly he was a salesman from... This is put up by R.
Talsorian.
So maybe he was just like a plant for the company who just goes from small town to small town in England and just gives people copies of Cyberpunk 2020.
Predicting that most of the Cyberpunk books I'd buy were really cheap, really bad, overbought ones that Dave's had for like £4 until 2020 itself, where I would actually buy their new Cyberpunk game, Cyberpunk Red, which I still haven't read.
Oh, I remember a huge Cyberpunk thing I was really into. ShadowRun. Not the role-playing game, but the Super Nintendo game based on the Shadow...
There was a SNES game of it?
There was a SNES game. It's kind of awesome. It's also kind of... it's kind of difficult because it's definitely one of those role-playing games where you have to find out where the plot is going. It won't... The DM's not railroading you on what you have to do.
Wow. I made a character for a Shadowrun game, and then the person that was going to GM it bailed. And from everything I've heard about Shadowrun, it's an interesting setting. The system has never been good, and the basic concept is very much you're going to do some shady work for corporations because maybe one day you'll be the shady corporation. That kind of mentality of
I'm good.
Where
so the cyber yuppie,
I guess
cybercentrism.
Yeah, kind of. A friend of mine used a system called the Black Hack to run Cyberpunk set in dystopian Cyberpunk Brighton, which was good fun. So yeah.
So that one shop which just sells nothing but weird clubbing gear on Sydney Street.
Oh, Miles, I've got some terrible news for you.
No. Have they expanded to London Road?
It did make it to 2020, but not beyond. We're like, yes, for Cyberpunk year. Now we're done. Our work is over here. I assume the pandemic was not kind to the weird neon clubwear market.
So, Charlie. Oh yeah, we actually mentioned why we're talking about Cyberpunk
Yeah,
earlier.
so yeah, why were we talking about noir as well as cyberpunk here?
Okay. I feel that Cyberpunk as a literary genre just does take a lot from pulp noir trappings, which is why I put Raymond Chandler as my thing, because I always equate noir and film noir and like detectives to like one of the best in the genre, which is Raymond Chandler, who wrote The Big Sleep. The book you need to read to get why The Big Lebowski is so funny.
Yeah,
Because I did not get The Big... Like my entire life, everyone's become like, oh man, The Big Lebowski is the funniest film ever. It's great. It's great. It's great. I watched them like, okay, it's good, but I don't get it. Then I read The Big Sleep, or rather, I listened to an 80s BBC radio play of it starring Ed Bishop as Philip Marlowe. He voices a lot of the American characters in the old Gerry Anderson shows. He was Captain Blue in Captain Scarlet and the Mysterons, and he played Straker in the Gerry Anderson live-action show UFO, which is fucked up.
Oh, God. I listened to the Geek Syndicate podcast. They have been rewatching UFO, and it sounds wild.
UFO is amazing. So, yeah, and I read The Big Sleep, and then I watched Big Lebowski, and I was like, oh, I get why this is funny, because this is The Big Sleep if they got the wrong guy to be the hero.
Yeah.
And then I got the film. Admittedly, given this book, I probably should have said another Gerry Anderson show, which is Space Precinct, which was basically crap Hill Street Blues in space.
I mean, so I like noir. Noir's one of those things that I'm a fan of, not in a massive way. I'm kind of a casual noir fan. And I don't know what I expected coming into TekWar, because I didn't even read the back of the book going into this. I was like, it's going to be some sci-fi bullshit. It's going to be Shatner doing what he'd have done if he was in charge of Star Trek. I did not expect a film noir.
Yeah. And it's not really... I don't know. I'm not going to say it's... I'm not going to say it's a great film noir, because...
I mean, I realise, as I said, film noir, it's not even a film. It's a book.
No, it's a book.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a
hard-boiled detective fiction. This is not.
Yeah. It's very much your soft-boiled egg of noir.
Yeah, it is your fuzzy cardigan of detective pulp. Not helped by the fact that the main character, our William Shatner self-insert Gary Stu, is literally called Jake Cardigan.
I read this during after being on a picket line for a few hours, and I sat down in a cafe. I opened it up. I almost spat my drink out about the agony and the ecstasy of writing the book, and then opening the first page of it and seeing the name, I literally shouted. It's like a couple of paragraphs in going, today all that was going to change, but Jake Cardigan didn't know anything about. I was like, really? Like, what?
Do you think it's pronounced like in the book, like cardigan or cardigan?
I mean, it feels like it's a sound-alike for that kind of name where it's like, Cardigan's a wild card. Yeah, Cardigan doesn't play by the rules, but it's fucking Cardigan.
It's Cardigan. Well,
it's
maybe
like what you wear. It's literally spelt that way. When I saw that, I was like, what's his love interest? Like Sylvia Blouse? Like what?
Sylvia Pullover.
Okay. I mean, were cardigans not as much of a thing in 1989 in the States?
I don't know. Like, okay, Jake members only jacket doesn't work. Like, he couldn't have even done like the thing you always do in bad novels, which is just change a letter to make it sound more futuristic, like
Yeah.
have it be cardigan or cardisan.
Cardigan with a K.
Cardigan with an X.
Yeah.
For extreme. Like, hell, he could
it
have
was
just
in the 90s when he wrote this, I guess.
Yeah, so, like, it could have been Jake X Cardigan.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I feel we are, of course, as any time that we're away from each other and a recording device for a long amount of time, we are approaching this in a fairly random and unhinged way. So, we'll get on to what TekWar is and bring you all in, because we've experienced a lot here. Miles has made me experience a lot here, and I don't know if I can forgive him. But before we do that, we will, as tradition has dictated, go on to what non-TekWar thing have you been enjoying since we last spoke, Miles?
Well, I have been enjoying the new Apple TV show, Monarch, Legacy of Monsters, which is a TV show tie-in to the current Monsterverse, which is what they're calling the current spout of US and King Kong Godzilla films. It's co-created by comic writer Matt Fraction, who has written, some of the best comic books, and also X-Men as well.
Yeah, his run certainly happened. But yeah, he wrote Hawkeye, and that was great. He wrote Sex Criminals,
and that was great, although it's really hard to recommend a comic to someone with the title Sex Criminals. It takes place in two separate timelines. One is the 50s, which involves a bunch of scientists uncovering that there are these giant monsters hanging around, and then it cuts to the present day. Well, it cuts to 2015, post the first Godzilla film, and you have this American-Japanese woman who went to Japan because her father went missing, immediately found out that her father had a second family in Tokyo.
Yeah.
And it turns out he knows about Monarch. And so they're on the run because Monarch are chasing them, trying to uncover what happened to the father.
Right.
There is a character called Shaw in both timelines. In the 2015 timeline, he's played by Kurt Russell. Very old Kurt Russell, but it's Kurt Russell. He still has that Kurt Russell charm, which Chris Pratt has tried and failed to emulate in the Jurassic World movies. And then in the younger timeline, he's played by Wyatt Russell, Kurt's son, who also played U.S. agent in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And it's kind of fun because it's very clear that Wyatt has kind of studied his dad's mannerisms and his dad's kind of on-screen persona to kind of give us a younger version of that kind of Kurt Russell kind of cocky swagger. And so it's been a lot of fun. It's been Monster Light, although Godzilla did turn up in episode 3 in the 50s timeline, where the US government immediately kind of tricked him onto an island and then do what any American soldier does in Hawaii in the 1950s, which is immediately set off a nuclear bomb, and for science.
Of course.
So yeah, the show is fun. I'm enjoying it, and I'm trying to keep up with it weekly, which for me is a challenge in and of itself. Charlie, what non-TekWar thing have you been enjoying recently?
So, I figured I'd go into the book realm, especially because I read, I think, 3 books in the span of trying to read TekWar, and and yeah, this
is the way.
It is. It's the book I really enjoyed was Venomous Lumpsucker by Ned Bowman. So it's, first of all, I'm going to say it's kind of funny because the topic very, very much is not. It's about extinction.
That's not funny.
Specifically, the extinction industry. What happens when you get capitalism more involved than it already is with the extinction industry. And effectively, kind of like carbon credits and that sort of thing. If you start fining people for making a species extinct, as a lot of companies have been doing, then they're going to effectively have extinction credits, which are we can get away with making X amount of species extinct. And there's some buying and selling, and you need to spend a vastly larger sum of them if you make an intelligent species extinct, understandably. And the protagonists of this book, one, after a fuck up happens, and this is a book with a lot of fuck ups happening, the venomous lumpsucker might well be extinct. So she wants to find it. She's driven very much by the want of her eventual annihilation at the hands of the venomous lumpsucker, an ugly fish that rips lumps off of its prey and might be smart, might be intelligent, it might not. So she wants to make sure that it isn't extinct, but her kind of climate guilt very much has her on a kind of death spiral. And she's working with a guy who did a lot of short selling of extinction credits and basically sold his company's extinction credits on the understanding that there will be a good hefty return without realizing they'd made the venomous lumpsucker possibly extinct, and it is probably very intelligent as a species, so he's fucked, basically. He's someone that desperately loves eating any food, and so much is fake food, like pretend food, especially with things like panda or anything like that after the last panda was killed, and you get protesters throwing like a giant panda tumor at people and shit like that. And it's basically them traveling the world, which is horrifically ravaged by the environment, finding enclosures that have been accidentally destroyed, or where people have kind of hacked away the virtual presence of a lot of the extinct species, where they were kind of contained for posterity. So it could be a real fucking bummer of a book. But
Yep.
Ned Bauman does a very, very good job of wielding a razor sharp wit with it all. So while it is an incredibly grim subject, it is very well done. My biggest fear is that if I talk about it out loud, some capitalist somewhere is going to hear about this and go, "Fuck, that's a really good idea. Extinction credits. We should do that." So yeah, good, but slightly terrifying at the same time.
Feel good novel of the century, right there.
Exactly. So tonight, rather than talking about any particular episode of Star Trek, we are talking about William Shatner and an uncredited Ron Goulart's TekWar, released in October 1989. So we have UK and US #1 hits for that month, or at least the most popular ones there, with the UK having That's What I Like by Jive Bunny and the Mixmasters, and the US with Miss You Much by Janet Jackson. I don't remember either of these.
No.
I don't even know who Jive Bunny and the Mixmasters are.
Well, clearly they were the Mixmasters.
Yes.
Which is also the name of a Decepticon who transforms into a mixing truck. He's one of the Constructicons. They form cool. Devastator.
Well, good for Jive Bunny and Mixmaster.
Yeah, but of course, this is not a Transformers podcast. This is a TekWar podcast, and
about a different kind of tech.
Yeah. Okay. So, of course, you turn the back cover. Here's the back cover blurb, accompanied by William Shatner. I don't know. I think he's trying to do neutral passport photo here, or I think do you think that Shatner's trying to do bedroom eyes?
I don't know. It feels like he's trying to contain the usual kind of smug grin sort of
Like
thing.
maybe like this is the cover he wants for like his acoustic album. Like Shatner goes acoustic. Shatner. Like Bill
Here's my
Shatner
jazz mix.
unplugged. Yeah. Known to millions as Star Trek's Captain Kirk. But okay, obviously, yeah, he was demoted from Admiral by the time this came out. Actor-director William Shatner now turns his talents to a stunning novel of future shock. Okay, I'm a 2000 AD fan. I am offended that he thinks that he could compare to future shock. TekWar is a story of ex-cop Jake Cardigan, who's framed for dealing an addictive brain stimulant called Tek. That's Tek with a K, because of the future. And sentenced to 15 years of suspended animation. Now, mysteriously released after 4 years in the freezer, Cardigan is on the loose and out for justice.
Yes. So,
author, Dreamweaver, visionary, plus actor, William Shatner's TekWar.
So I had some friends asking me about questions about TekWar because they saw I was going through something.
What did they say? Charlie, are you okay? Do you need us to find you a therapist?
And then I'd explain to them about Jake Cardigan. And yeah, they were like, so when you read it, do you read it in Shatner's voice? It's like, no, but at times Garth Marenghi's voice comes out. What I love with this, because I think we've got pretty much the same edition. It's just yours mentions the hit TV version.
Yep, I have a little orange kind of swirly sun thing, which makes me think of how they used to cover up naughty bits in British pornography, which has now a hit TV series.
Yeah, so with this, the best review, the best recommendation from Publishers Weekly, the pace is unrelenting.
Oh, you see, my one says, from Star Trek's Captain Kirk, a futuristic thriller from Kirkus Review. From Kirkus Reviews. Oh, I do have the paces unrelenting on Publishers Weekly.
Oh,
These are definitely... Okay. The top one is not really a review. It's just kind of a statement of it's a statement of intent.
Yeah.
I love looking at book reviews where they've clearly had to kind of do some very intense editing to make this sound good.
That ... is always a glorious telltale sign. It could be, he believes this is a futuristic thriller, or this is nothing like a futuristic thriller. Yeah, it's certainly a book. Now, the good news is, for anyone who wants to read this, the pace is indeed unrelenting. Despite a lot of nothing happening, it moves quickly. Why did this take me two months to read? Maybe a little longer? Mainly because I'd get 10 chapters through and I'd just stop. I would just stop and I would read a different novel, and then I'd come back for another 10. And that was pretty much my experience of reading this. You've read this before, though, Miles.
I think I've read this. I know I read this before. I couldn't remember a single, apart from like the first 4 chapters. I couldn't remember a bloody thing. I do like the Boris Vallejo art cover.
Yeah.
Like, it's a cover that's definitely been airbrushed on some metalhead's van.
God. Yeah.
Like, you've got, like, a really cool rocket ship. You've got... I think that's meant to be Winger.
Right.
The android.
Yeah, the shiny head.
Yup.
Got
I think then that's Kate Bush, I think, right next to him.
It does look like her, yes.
It has some fantastic big 80s hair. And then we get Jake Cardigan, who looks less like William Shatner and more like if David Hasselhoff was turned into a Thunderbirds puppet.
Look, I mean, if you're getting Boris Vallejo to kind of paint your cover, you're just accepting what you get.
But like he's done Star Trek covers, so I've seen Star Trek novel covers where he's drawn Shatner, and it's a pretty good Shatner because like Boris Vallejo can do like photorealism really well. It's just like, you know, I think like Boris was like, if I do it as Shatner, it's going to give the game away.
Yeah, and is that alternatively what Ron Goulart looks like?
Oh, maybe
that'd be amazing.
That would be like some proper like conspiracy stuff.
Some incredible shade. So, Miles, you and I both listen to varied book-related podcasts.
I have been on various. I have been on a book-related podcast, and so this is the fourth book this year I've had to read for a podcast.
Yes. Speaking of which, if people haven't heard Breakfast in the Ruins and Miles's guest appearances covering some of James Herbert's novels.
horror and John Norman's porno fantasies of gore.
Yeah.
Can I make a confession? This actually might be the worst of these books I've read this year, and one of those is softcore fantasy erotica.
Oh my god! Imagine if Shatner did that. Imagine if he was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna get real sexy with it."
Like I said in the notes, that's for the Ashes of Eden.
Oh god!
One of his Star Trek novels, because like, okay, Tarnsmen of Gore is a bad book.
Yeah,
but there is stuff in Tarnsmen of Gore which is either stupid, like the fact that it's a planet where no one has invented the satchel, and so people just, like slaves, just carry shit around in their mouths. It has been a year, and I still remember that simple fucking fact. It's a planet of, like, flying beasts and magnificent towers, but no one has gone, hey, I've invented the man purse.
Or pockets.
Pockets don't... Like, the only people who wear pockets, like, craftsmen in their aprons. The James Herbert books were actually quite fun.
Yes, like it sounded like you had a fun time with them.
Like they're bloody and they're gory and places kind of weirdly misogynistic, but still they're really fun reads. Like I wasn't bored. Whereas I be honest, TekWar has the reek of contractual obligation both by the writer and by the reader.
Yeah, no one's in for a good time here. You can tell because we're over half an hour in, and we've not described the plot of this book. So the reason I was bringing up other book-based podcasts was to see if, Miles, you wanted to pick your poison. Do you want to try and sum this up in a grand total of 5 sentences, or in the style of Just King Things, or do you want to sum it up in 60 seconds like I don't even own a television? Rip.
R.I.P.
Yeah. Attempted to do and often failed.
You know what?
Mm-hmm.
Because we like to try and be concise and doing our shows in 5 minutes.
We're both known for our conciseness.
I am going to try 5 sentences.
Ooh.
I feel this is the price I have to pay for making us read this and maybe read the sequel.
What?
Well, we started one. We can't stop it. We can't stop at TekWar.
Oh, we can.
I bought the first 4 of these books, Charlie. I need to justify these purchases to myself and my cats.
My wife is Marv's problem.
My wife is okay. My wife is okay with me buying books. My cats, though, judge me because I bought TekWar William Shatner novels instead of giving them scritches and food.
Oh, no.
So, okay, 5 sentences. We're going to show how bad at grammar I am.
It's all right. As a writer, you get to butcher it. It's fine.
Oh, good. All right, 5 sentences. Sentence number 1. Jake Cardigan is a bad cop, comma, put in prison, comma, for being addicted to the electronic drug Tek, M-. 4 years into his prison sentence, comma, he is, comma, released, full stop.
Amazing. Okay.
Sentence number 2.
Mm-hmm.
Jake has been awoken by his former partner Gomez, who is a member of the Cosmos Detective Agency, who wants to recruit him to find these 2 scientists, Leon Kittredge and his daughter Beth Kittredge, comma. Beth Kittredge is really hot, comma. This will come up later. ... Jake's wife and son have divorced him and left in the house, comma. Jake's reaction to this is to go slip right back into that good old tech habit, full stop. Were you just flipping me off right there on the webcam? I
was trying to keep track sentence-wise.
This is some I am butchering this like Cormac McCarthy butchers punctuation. R.I.P. Sentence 2.5. So okay, fine. Sentence 3. Jake and Gomez take the case, comma. Gomez is immediately put out of action by a kamikaze android. By the way, there are kamikaze androids in the future. People use them for assassinations, comma. Jake does it alone because he's a wild card who doesn't play by the rules, comma. So he goes to Mexico, full stop. Sentence 4. Jake doesn't do a lot in Mexico, comma, but he finds an android copy of Beth Kittredge, the hot scientist daughter, who knows more than she's telling, comma. Jake doesn't like androids, so he's very kind of offensive to her, but comes around because of her robo-boobs. Beth is killed by a kamikaze android pretending to be Jake's son. Also, there's some stuff with a warlord reactionary called Wardog, who everyone thinks Jake has had the sex with, but Jake is not Warbride, but Jake has not had the sex with. That's how much of a fuckmaster 3000 Jake Cardigan truly is. Full stop. Sentence 5. The book just trails to a conclusion. It turns out that the person who was behind all this was actually the person that Jake's former ex-wife is actually sleeping with. Jake cracks the case and meets the real Beth Kittredge on the moon. Will we find out anything else about the anti-tech? Oh, wait, comma. I didn't mention the anti-tech device, comma. Turns out that the missing scientists, comma, were working on an anti-tech device, comma, which will eradicate tech's addictive influence, comma. Punctuation, random punctuation mark. This is really bad for the drug concerns. Full stop.
Wow.
That was the words full stop, not actually the punctuation mark full stop. Because as we all know, governments have never secretly been involved in drug cartels for illicit, illegal military operations overseas, comma. See the Opium Wars, Iran-Contra, the war on drugs, open brackets. 1980s Ronald Reagan says what? Question mark, close brackets. To be continued? Full stop.
That was some impressive punctuation. I don't think I've seen that many commas in a sentence since sixth form creative writing class. Incredible. Yeah, so I was impressed at how quickly you managed to skip through basically all of the Mexico stuff. But yeah, so little happens. Like Jake's a bit shit, really. Like, as his former cop, former convict. Oh yeah, I've got knowledge from both sides. First of all, like the convict side of it, he's been put in a freezer for 4 years. So, like, what do you expect to do with the prison system with that? Like, surely prison's meant to put people away to have them repent. It's not.
Oh, Charlie, you live in England, so you don't know the hell that is the American prison system.
Oh, okay. So just going, we'll freeze this person for 15 years, sling them out, and then they decide not to do a crime now?
Yeah, well, it helps that in America, the majority of people in prison are underprivileged minorities, so it's just, it's... This is getting political really fast, but yeah.
Yeah,
it's basically a way to generate profit, because a lot of prisons in America are run for profit. If that doesn't disturb you, then what's wrong with you?
Well, yes. And so, what are all these frozen bodies being used for in the aid of profit?
Captain Birdseye products?
Maybe. But yeah, so, like, he gets unfrozen
Yeah.
and immediately is rattling down contacts to try and dox his ex-wife and try and get in contact with her, which it's not a great way to win you over to a protagonist really early, like in the
No.
first 10 chapters of the book. And I don't know, it was what, 20 chapters? Something like that. It was ludicrously late that I found out what Tek actually is. Oh no, 48 pages in. I didn't know why he was unfrozen. I wasn't quite sure what Tek was, other than it's a thing that affects your brain. So Tek is a kind of a drug that makes you see like VR versions of an idealized life, but it's only one use and it addicts you to it.
Mm.
Okay, good. Right. So even after having read this, saying it out loud, it's like, that is correct, right? So the big plot here is trying to find a doctor and his lovely daughter Beth, who Jake can't stop looking at the photos of while he's getting the briefing of the case. He keeps shuffling them around, putting the photo to the top. When there's a hologram of her, he's ogling the hologram. He can't get enough of her, despite...
We missed the thing, because it's implied that he's met her before, because he dreams about her at the beginning of the book.
Yeah. Yeah, does that ever become a thing?
Not maybe in the sequel.
I don't know if I care that much to find out. But yeah, so like, yeah, it was weird enough that Shatner's writing tics mean you quite often get like an age, maybe a weight, and a nationality of people. 48, overweight, Mexican.
See,
kind of thing.
I still think that my personal theory about this is that apparently he started making notes for this during Star Trek V. Right. Which, given that was a film that he both wrote and directed, the jokes just write themselves. My current running theory is that this was a pilot script for a weekly sci-fi crime show that Shatner wanted to shop around. And so when it was very clear that ain't happening, he went, right, I'm going to turn this into a novel. And so he's basically transferring like the stage directions for the character breakdowns into the prose.
Yeah, I mean, there are some odd habits with that as well. There are a lot of characters specifically called out for their weight, and a lot of women are divided into the two camps of blonde or not blonde as well, including Kate Cardigan, the ex-wife, and also Beth and Robot Beth, who despite everything, all of the varied exes, rumored or real, and potential love interests are all brunettes, despite the blonde or not blonde division that he does. Yeah, it's got a weird tone, really, with a lot of it.
Did you notice the fact that RoboBeth may have actually been more competent than Jake was?
Oh yes, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, when Jake's having to do some robot bullfighting, which should be cooler, should be way cooler than it actually is in here. Like, he fights 4 robot bulls. And yeah, it's just like, oh, fuck it, just get out of here. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Robot Beth fixes it. Yeah. And the other thing I caught was when he was looking at Beth Kittredge and Dr. Kittredge, I guess almost that classic Star Trek or classic science fiction thing of whatever doctor this is has to have a hot daughter. When he looks at Dr. Kittredge, he's like, a doctor in his 50s isn't past it. Honestly, I immediately had to look up Shatner's age. He was very much like, no, it's fine that he's in his 50s. Why, Jake Cardigan's in his late 40s. He's not quite there yet. He's basically a decade younger than Shatner was.
Yeah.
And even though Beth is, 26? And the love interest, I guess it's less problematic than Leonardo DiCaprio's age gaps with his partners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I admit the one thing I did have to check while reading this was, has William Shatner been divorced lately? Because there is some, like, the ex-wife, Kate Cardigan, is every single male writer's combination of all the misogynistic ex-wife tropes you can do. Like, she's a bit of a bitch. She's refusing access to his son. That's
literally sleeping with the enemy.
Literally sleeping with the enemy. And also, at the end of the book, we finally find out the reason why Jake Cardigan slipped and started taking Tek was because he was too invested in the case he was on, and so his wife left him for a week, and this is what made him fall into the drug habit. It's like, it's no like, hey, he gave into temptation, or he was doing some Miami Vice undercover stuff and got in too deep. Nope. His wife ditched him. That's all it takes.
Hey, Mars, noir heroes aren't supposed to be flawed. They're not supposed to have fucked up themselves. No. You know, they're supposed to be pure in all things, and if they've slipped, it's obviously that bitch.
It's obviously the woman's fault. Yes.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah. One other thing that I found interesting in my notes, at one point, I did note down that Shatner seems very impressed with himself at having learnt some basic Spanish, kind of, some basic Mexican phrases.
Oh no, I think I know, because like usually in a lot of 80s cyberpunk, it was always the fear of like Japan would become like the big superpower, and so you have a lot of Japanese imagery in, like, say, Blade Runner, actually. So I think just Shatner's going, oh, okay, what is different from Japan? Mexico, got it. Oh God, Shatner baby, you've done this again.
Yeah, the state of Mexico in it was like all of the shit around the border. It's, oh my God, it's a war zone. Look, skeletons, dead horse, oh, destroyed things. You can feel the bad American TV show like yellow filter with a lot of this, because it is just this complete Mad Max sort of thing, just south from the States with the air cars and all of this. it's this incredible hive of scum and villainy with War Bride, who again sounds far more impressive as a name. Like, yeah,
Mm.
you've got this warlord of these contested borderlands. Yeah, this revolutionary. No, a lady revolutionary. Oh my god, what? Yeah, and then no, it's sadly not at all impressive at
No,
any point.
it's
There's a
not
knife
even.
wielding cyborg. There's a knife cyborg.
There's
You know,
several Mexican, like there is a guy like a dressed up as like a stereotypical Mexican. Like I think he has the mustache and the hat, and he's just 2 steps away from being like a knife wielding Speedy Gonzalez robot. Like this is a weird Five Nights at Freddy's ripoff. I'm like this should be more. This should be more. Like
yeah,
this should be more offensive. This should be more dumb, and it's just
yeah. Like
yeah.
even the robot prostitutes, the Andy hookers. Yeah, like
Oh,
I mean,
I love the fact that robot porn
mm,
has destroyed real porn as
oh,
an industry.
exactly.
And I'm just thinking, oh god, like oh Billy boy, you don't know how the zeitgeist has dated what you said,
Yeah.
because I am sure in this day and age, if people like you wanna make a porn movie where you fuck a robot, people are going yes. Can I? Is his name Fisto?
So yeah,
Like
it's
it's
yeah.
it's it's this weird middle-aged small c conservative image of what sleaze is. And
Mm,
it's never sleazy enough.
no.
It's like Shatner doesn't want to go too deep.
Yeah, it'd be a bit too much work,
Yeah.
really. Like, yeah, it's where later on you start getting these moments of, oh my god, robot prostitutes. Is this going to be exciting? No.
No.
Oh, we're seeing the war bride in a great forest that she's hidden in. Is she going to be interesting? Actually, it's
No.
funny
No.
you should say that. No, she
No.
is all about that hashtag brand, though, with
It,
like a
it,
fake audience and several rapes in her gritty backstory, including some which are, of course, made up to make a number that's more exciting to the audience. God damn it.
does she do anything to help? Like, does she and her band of gritty gorillas help Jake out in a crucial moment?
I mean,
No.
like, there is a point where her boyfriend, because apparently anyone that has either actually or, allegedly slept with Jake now has a shitty partner. She's been seeing this guy Vargas,
Oh, I thought you were going
who,
to imply that Vargas also slept with Jake Cardigan.
I mean, that would have been more interesting.
That would have been more enjoyable if, like, the reason why everyone thinks that Jake slept with Warbride is Jake is just kind of a bit ashamed to admit he slept with Vargas instead.
Yeah, which is fair, 'cause Vargas seems like a bit of shit, really. But yeah, there's a fight scene, which I don't know about you. It worked in my mind's eye. Perfect Shatner Star Trek fighting. He chopped a gun out of his hand. There was some nice running about. There wasn't any double hand punching, but I liked to imagine it all the same.
Hmm.
And like Warbride does at least fucking laser through Vargas's chest after a bit of a chat about, oh no, he's a bad one. And that's it. That's all she's good for, aside from this ominous presence earlier in the book.
Quick question.
Mm.
I think this might be one of the very few books I've read which is not a TV tie-in where I can mentally imagine the ad breaks.
Yeah.
Just like, end of this section, fade to black.
I mean, yeah. Maybe you just put it down and went away for a bit. It was like, oh my god, I'm supposed to do this, aren't I?
Thought about my life. Like,
decided I was doing pretty well, actually, and I'd go back to the book. Because obviously I've written and directed a movie now, so I'm going to be perfect at this. Yeah, that end as well. I was overjoyed at the last strike day that I was on, that I was reading this. I was like, okay, I'm about 80% through. I can do it. Finish line. And hitting, what is it, chapter 33, 34, and he's going to the moon. And it feels like there's a lot to wrap up. There's a lot to do. And then when he meets the real Beth in her uncle's moon villa, and like, in fact, it's a bit further than that. Even just going, oh yeah. In my notes, I have here. I forgot to write about the ending because there isn't one. It's
Yeah.
like Beth going, oh yeah, her dad's a bit bad, and you know she kind of feels she knows Drake, and he's like, well, I've got a funny story, and then he tells her the novel you've just read, and then I assume she kills him because fucking hell, all of this nonsense, madness. It is. It's certainly a book, and its pace
It's
was indeed unrelenting.
yep.
Yeah.
I just this is why I keep saying it feels like a pilot for a TV show, because there's none of like the inner depth. Like the really great one of those great things about like either pulp noir or detective novels. Something Agatha Christie does really well, Chandler does really well, is not just putting you in the head of the characters, but also putting you in the head of the society around the characters. Like, I think it was Ed Brubaker in one of like his little essays he has at the back of his comics, where he says that Agatha Christie stories aren't about whodunits. They're stories about the secrets of the rich and powerful. And our characters unearthing these different secrets in trying to solve this murder. I think the big strength about Raymond Chandler is that you have a character in Philip Marlowe who was essentially trying to be a good man in this city of corruption and vice. And how much can one man put himself in the dirt again and again and still remain a decent person? And you get Shatner trying to pay lip service to this, but it's never deep. It's just San Francisco's nice, but kind of skeezy. Mexico's a shithole, and the character is just there's nothing to him.
None.
The most impressive thing is his drug addiction, which only turns up when it's important for the book to kind of have a moment when it's like, oh no, he might fall back. He does Tek once, at the start of the book, and then he's kind of fine, except for his one black moment where he's tempted, but then he's fine. He doesn't fall back. At no point is the character really. At no point does it feel like the character is actually an addict. It just seems to treat his Tek addiction as like one of the flaws on his character sheet, which only turns up when the player or the GM remember that, oh yeah, he has this flaw.
Yeah, one of those, like in World of Darkness games, you'd often get a nice 1 point disadvantage that was like, nothing mechanical happens to this, but do roleplay that you're a bit arrogant, and that would be it. And there you go. You got 1 skill point. Good
like,
work.
Do you know like a good example of like an addict in fiction? And I'd say Charlie from Lost.
Yes, Charlie fucks up repeatedly.
Yeah,
and he tries. He desperately tries, and he's on an island that certain forces there want him to fail, want him to fuck up, and encourage that. And ultimately, it takes a TV series amount of time. Well, half a one, really. And while he doesn't have a good fate, he has a good end.
Yeah.
And this feels like Shatner's a man who has seen film noir, who has read that kind of crime novel, but hasn't seen them. Really.
No.
He understands what a hero like this should be, aesthetically.
Yeah,
and he knows that there needs to be, the ingenue, needs to be all these kind of roles, but oh
it's
yeah, his partner on the force. Fuck, I need to get rid of him because it's all got to be Jake Steele here.
it's hampered by the confines of standards and practice.
Mm.
Like, I kind of want to see the gritty HBO remake of TekWar, like the gritty Perry Mason they did a few years ago,
Mhm.
which I think had some dead kids in it. Like, you want to see what this could look like if it was given to a writer who like actually had some teeth and wanted to kind of try and, dare I say it, talk about the issues. But of course, it was the 80s. It was Reagan's "Just Say No, America."
Well,
Like this
yeah,
basically treats it, with absolutely no gravitas, no energy, no depth, and thus no passion.
it would be too much, really,
No, yeah,
to do any of that. Yeah, sadly, I'm aware there is an animation that was an animated series that's, in theory, due out in 2023. But given we are in the last dregs of 2023 and 0 people appear to be tied to it
Ma-
on IMDb, I doubt it's happening.
no, no. Do you know what actually did do this kind of addictive nostalgia drug better?
Well, what, Miles?
Red Dwarf.
Of course.
Yeah, like they did better. They did the episode Better Than Life, which has Better Than Life, the drug which gives you your greatest wishes. And then when they did the novels, which are much more darker and grittier, I never thought I would say the words the dark, gritty Red Dwarf novels.
Hmm.
But the Red Dwarf novels basically have Better Than Life be this virtual drug, which is so addictive, you don't even know you're in the game. And anyone trying to remove the implant from you, it will kill you.
Yeah.
It's not as addictive as the other drug, which is in a novel, which is really fun, which is a drug called Bliss, which is so addictive that if you see it, you're immediately addicted and you immediately think you're God. It is essentially what everyone in the US police claims fentanyl does, which is a drug so powerful that you look at it and you're addicted.
Wow. Yeah, yeah. It's been a long time since I've read those Red Dwarf books. I think I'd got into the TV show quite heavily, and about 13 or 14, reading the books and go, "Oh, this is quite different.
Yeah,
Oh,
the
this is
books
a
are
very different."
really different.
Yes, but yeah, it's that kind of thing with TekWar where the tech doesn't really feature much. You
No.
don't really hear much of what it's about until later on because you don't need to. The big MacGuffin that the Kittredges were kidnapped over, in theory, they may have been killed, but we know they've been kidnapped instead. Is a device that will somehow destroy all tech in one go. And given tech is by somehow like a one-use chip, I'm not quite sure how this is intended, but yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
why not? Why not? The
That's
chips
how
are magic, the detonator thing is magic. Whatever.
it's essentially, I don't know, AVG. It's spyware.
Right, of course. Yeah, kind of launch this spyware and it'll be able to install on all the brain boxes and stop you from getting your tech fix. Yeah, tech. I don't know what I expected. I was like, oh, is this going to be some kind of future technology, something like that, where we're going to spell it with a K? Because because future. I didn't expect this to be a whole drug war thing.
It's it's basically it's basically the Virtual Boy.
Yes, yeah. This feels like it's the drug war wanting to be a noir story, but actually being kind of an old science fiction film, with Beth and with Leon and with the robot version of Beth, which I will admit we're giving this a lot of shit. A laugh out loud moment was when Jake saw his teenage boy, who is not been allowed to speak to because is of the divorce, and it's like, it's my son, oh my god, and the son's like, oh dad, and out of nowhere robot Beth just bolts in, intercept, going, the boy's a bomb. It's like, yes, yes, the boy's a bomb, give me more of that.
But you know what ruins that? It's the second time they pull that trick in the book, because Jake's partner Gomez, who we've not mentioned once, who is admittedly like the most Mexican cliche, is taken out of the story the same way.
Well, I mean, wasn't it a hot blonde he saw that then blew up?
Yeah, it wasn't actually like one of Beth. Oh no, it was the scientist. No.
But yeah, like it's like robots that look like people but are actually bombs. It could have been so much cooler. And at least in that last one, I know what you're saying with Gomez getting got by this. And you even get a robot taxi driver going, well, for coverage for the company, I am fitted with explosives just in case, anyone nicks this or tries to take me hostage or whatever. But the boy that becomes a bomb, A+, love it. Yeah.
And I really hope that the sequels are this insane.
I wish you luck in your reading endeavors.
No, you don't want to. You don't want to be in. You don't want to do Casual Tek 2, Tech Lord Boogaloo.
Oh god, only if people pay us money. But yeah, I know you bought the entire lot.
No, I just bought the first 4.
There's more than 4?
I think it's about 9.
Oh fucking hell. Jesus wept. Right. I didn't know that. I didn't know there were 4.
And there was a TV show, which the TV show. There was also a Marvel comic.
Yes, I tried looking for that at Dave's, but I couldn't bring myself to ask my former employer, and I'd like to feel, after this many years, friend Hugh, please, could you get me the TekWar comics? Because I've bought some shameful X-Men comics from him. No, it's too much. Oh, dear. I'm aware of some extended techness of all of this, but it's... And good, because this one doesn't really end.
No.
Yeah, I want more bonkers technology. I did try and keep track of some of them. I have Tek, of course, and the cryo prisons.
Yep.
There's also technology to self-induce earthquakes. There's apparently that we do with LA now.
That was kind of funny. I thought that was kind of like, that feels like something they would have in like a Judge Dredd comic.
Yes. Oh god, I would love that in a Judge Dredd kind of thing. Like this bit of Mega City 1. It's on unstable plates, so he just, ease off the tension.
Yeah.
Which, it was like, oh yeah, LA gets a little earthquake every now and again, just a treat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Faxes. Faxes featured real big in here. There were fax books, there were fax zines. You go to a bookshop and they fax you the copy of the book that then you print out. Love it.
That was great. I also love the fact that he goes to one in Mexico, and the fact the shop owner says only 6 books are allowed because Mexico's just that shit and undemocratic, unlike America.
Oh god. Yeah, and yeah, of course, for kamikaze robots.
Yep.
Look like us, but then run at you and blow up.
I'm surprised there's not been in like a video game.
I think there was a video game of TekWar, wasn't there?
I think it was like one of those FMV, like one of those 90s FMV games. I mean, I don't know. I can imagine this one of those being one of those first-person shooters.
Oh God, yes. Yeah, I could see that being a thing. Let's see. Oh no, that's a sci-fi TV movie. That's another sci-fi TV movie, and then the sci-fi TV show. Yeah, who knows? Maybe. Oh yeah, that's another sci-fi TV movie. My word, Greg Evigan got a lot of work as Jake Cardigan. Good for him. I hope
Yeah.
he got paid well.
Okay, William Shatner's TekWar, Flight of Icarus.
Oh, there we go.
Hang on, PC long play, William Shatner's TekWar. Okay, it's quite fun. The two thumbnails side by side is kind of funny because I've got one here of William Shatner standing in front of, like, I don't know, a screen from Mist with the caption below saying "Take Tek and die," and Shatner's doing like a very kind of stern face, and then the one below it is clearly a long play, and it's got a poor quality, very heavily pixelated picture of Shatner with his mouth open, kind of like a shocked face, like dull surprise.
Okay, so it multimedia franchise TekWar.
I'm surprised we haven't had the big reboot of TekWar. That
Yeah.
we haven't had like the TekWar expanded universe. No one's coming to try and revitalize this intellectual property.
No, there's been no like critical re-examination of TekWar.
No. Well, maybe this is it. Maybe we are the critical examination of TekWar.
You say that, but we are very much here to bury it, not praise it. Yeah.
So yeah,
yeah, it's certainly a book. I feel that the slightly incoherent podcast that's just happened about all of this is probably a fair indicator, and given how little we went into the plot, shows how little plot there actually is.
So, Charlie,
Yeah.
where does this go on the big list?
I mean, we've not really got a bin.
Okay, have you ever actually thrown a book in a bin?
Not in a bin. I did throw my Kindle twice, actually. I'm pleased it survived. The first was reading Ready Player One.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And because I have a bad back, I like to lay in semi-supine in the morning to stretch the back out. Bit of Alexander technique type stuff, that kind of thing. But my attention span's so poor, I tend to read while I do that. And I just got to a point where I just yelled, "Oh, fuck off." Yelled, like, threw it. It hit the wall and then fell down onto my bed. So at least it had a safe landing. And then the second time was more with exasperation, reading another classic tome of our modern time with 50 Shades of Grey. So, yeah, kind of same. Like, yeah, like the reason I was reading it was because I was part of a writing group, and the writing group were doing like, let's all read a book every month or so. So we've got a common what are we reading that we can chat about. The person in charge was fairly judgy with what would be received or anything like that. And my now partner, Emma, who I was trying to impress at the time, was saying, why don't we read something that is popular with the public to dissect it? Not necessarily something good, but 50 Shades of Grey sells incredibly, constantly being taken out of the library she was working at the time, in every charity shop, all of that. The person in charge for writing group was so vehemently against it. even if I wasn't trying to impress Emma by basically siding with this decision, I might have said, yes, let's do this to wind the leader up. Now, the leader turned out to be a complete piece of shit turf anyway, so the
Of
more
course.
torment for her, the better. But yeah, so I've read it, and it's not good. It's very much not good. It's not the worst thing in the world, but it is poorly written. It is not a great story. And yeah, at one point I just was like, fuck this. And again, flung it. So yeah, hopefully I won't hit that point. If I have to get, what is it, Tech Lords for next one on Kindle, then I pray for my Kindle's safety.
Let's see. Okay, my 50 Shades story.
Go on.
Okay. I once got into an argument with a co-worker at the Hilton over 50 Shades of Grey. They turned to me and said, "You don't like the idea of women reading porn." And then I just remembered my then fiance's rather sizable collection on her computer, shall we say. And my response was, no, I am completely fine with women enjoying porn. I just think women should enjoy good porn.
Well, yeah.
Like, if you're gonna read erotica, don't read Tarnsmen of Gore, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, when I left the Hilton to immigrate and get married, one of my retirement presents from the Hilton was £200 and a copy of 50 Shades of Grey, which, to my credit, came across the ocean with me.
Oh, wow.
And then we tried to read it.
Yeah.
And we found any time the book actually almost got within an inch of potentially being sexy, the book would then ruin it.
It really can't stick the landing with that.
No. And so any attempt when you could almost have gone, yeah, this is kind of sexy. The book would then have one of the characters say something, which then immediately deflates the eroticism quicker than one of my attempts to make blancmange.
Wow. Yeah. So that's our 50 Shades of Grey story.
I have admittedly barbecued a book.
Oh, okay.
It was Battlefield Earth by L. Ron Hubbard.
Oh, that's fair.
Nothing of value was lost. And I once threw a book out of a second-story window.
Mm-hmm.
That was Empire by Orson Scott Card.
Again.
Yeah, which was a book which denotes a civil war between blue and red states in America. He tried to present this as fair, but this is Orson Scott Card, who in the afterword of the book talks about how gay marriage is destroying America, so I think there's some bias. There was a point when the main character in the book said, only watch Fox News, Europeans believe whatever they're told to by the media. This is the point where I said, right, fuck you, mate. Opened up the window of my parents' house in Brighton and chucked it out of my bedroom to land on the Brighton streets below, where it was gone the next day, but I really hoped that Brighton's status as a queer city in the UK just made the book burst into flames upon touching the tarmac.
Hopefully, yeah, or a bunch of seagulls just ripped it to pieces.
Yeah, that's possible.
I'd hope so.
Yeah, so, okay.
So yeah, we have no list to place this on.
We have no list, except a list of by the author.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, we do have some vague lists of works by other Star Trek actors as well. So yeah, you never know if this goes down well. We may.
You see, I've read some of Shatner's Kirk novels, and I think they're more your brand of crazy.
Oh no!
Because Kirk is in full on, like he is the person of which the entire universe revolves around.
Well, he's gonna double hand punch a dinosaur while riding it.
Like, they're it's basically, yes, Kirk dies in Generations, but he gets better.
Of course.
And then proceeds to kind of meet everyone in the Star Trek universe and either be better than them, smarter than them, punch them, or I think tries to screw them.
Of course. And I assume all of them go, oh my god, he's so cool.
Pretty much.
Like, give that Ace Rimmer, what a guy.
What a guy.
Oh.
So, while Tech Lords might be out in future, I'm not ruling out either the return where Kirk comes back from the dead.
Oh,
because I remember that one being kind of crazy.
I need
and
to
he
find
manages
some revenge books for you.
Do it.
This is the problem. Trying to find something terrible to inflict on you as revenge. If it's prose, you'll do it.
I'll do it. I've read some shit. Yeah.
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 God, I feel this is only a losing game for me.
See, this is great because the thing is, I used to hate read stuff.
Yep.
And I think I've mentioned on the podcast that fucking cancer year and COVID really made me stop doing this because I have better things in my time.
Yeah.
So maybe this is why I'm just all in on reading shit for podcasts, because now I can justify it.
Yes.
Do you know what would make me justify it even more?
Why? What?
If people went to our Ko-fi, where you can, if you give us a little bit of money, if you send us not much cash, we will find justification to do anything you tell us to do.
Pretty much, yeah. I was going to put caveats on it, but I've had several dental incidents go on, and we now have to pay for Zencastr. So really, we're any of yours for money.
Yeah. I work for Starbucks. I will dance in the back room for money.
Probably have.
Yeah, I probably have, but I won't admit it. Man, this actually came out as almost as long as on one of our regular episodes. Did we say this would be the quick one?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, I think that cursed it for us.
Yup. So, Charlie, where can they find us? Where can they send us not much cash? Where can they make us digitally dance in digital back rooms for digital money?
Yes. Well, handily, people can check out Casual Tek on Ko-fi, which is where we accept money, and also on Blue Sky, where we talk about Star Trek things occasionally, and also on the brand new Nerd and Tie forums, where, as well as just chatting with other people in the Nerd and Tie community, we will probably be tormenting them with varied bits of Star Trek tat and posting a link to the big list, or at least the public version of the big list, without as many embarrassing notes on it. So yeah, that's it for us for the show. You can find me at Faked Tales, where I talk about indie RPGs, skyshark.itch.io for my comics, and also on Blue Sky as Skyshark, where I talk about mostly X-Men, really. What about you, Miles?
You can find me on Blue Sky under the name Miles Reed Lobato, on mareedlobato.wordpress.com, and like you said, you can find Charlie on Blue Sky talking about X-Men, but unlike when he does it on his Facebook, I don't immediately go to every single end of each issue and post the Grange Hill theme.
Yet.
Yeah.
I guess if not integrated videos,
Yeah.
It wouldn't quite work the same. So next time we're going to be celebrating Christmas because the episode will drop literally on Christmas Day. How exciting. Next time we'll be doing our now traditional Xmas episode exchange. Who's going to get the lump of coal this time? As the giver of it last year, I get the feeling there may be some revenge coming my way.
And, normally we would say, go to a Starfleet. But this week, we weren't doing a Star Trek podcast, we were doing a TekWar podcast. So kids, Stay off the tech. Tech is a made-up drug. Winners, don't do tech. Or else you're going to get deported to Mexico.
Yeah, abrupt ending. You've been listening to Casual Tek by Charlie Etheridge Nunn and Miles Reed Lobato. Music by Alfred Etheridge Nunn. Casual Tek's part of the Nerd and Tie network, and if you want to support us monetarily, because you love what we do that much, you can now do that by going to Ko-fi and looking up Casual Tek. There's a link in the show notes.